I'm delighted to welcome today on my very new computer. You're my first podcast, Megan, on my new computer and my new camera and everything. So welcome, Megan Robinson, and you are the founder of Misfit to Mystic Academy. So the mystic thing intrigues me, and I'm definitely a misfit. So I think we're going to get on jolly well.
Amazing.
So what is the academy? Tell me how you came to set it up, because you've got quite an interesting past, haven't you?
Yes, I've got a very interesting past. I wasn't always known for Misfit to Mystic. My spiritual business used to be called Pearl Healing Corner, and I named that after my grandmother. Well, I named it after, it is named after my grandmother. So I was Pearl Healing Corner for maybe around 6 years. And at that point, I was really focusing on doing complementary therapies, and especially the energy therapies that were a really big interest to me at that point. And then when I rebranded in 2019 to Misfit to Mystic, it really painted the picture of not only my journey through my whole experiences, but it really honored the essence of the human, and it really honored the essence of the spirit as well. And I think that really spoke to a lot of the people that I was working with, a lot of the people who were following me online. I started my business online in secret when I was 18 years of age, when I got clean and sober. And it was my Reiki master teacher who really helped me to get to that stage. But I came out of the spiritual closet then, after I'd had a few years on Facebook offering readings, doing distant healing, being able to do some mentoring with people. So it all happened pretty quickly, but it transitioned from being on Facebook and not being known at all, not sharing my name, not wanting anyone to know who I was, to coming out and proud of the spiritual closet and creating this soulful business that has now taken me forward into my 30s, which I'm really, really grateful for, really grateful for.
Marvelous. And what was the switch? How did you come out of the closet? Was there a switch, or did you just gradually creep out?
I think I gradually creeped out. I think online, the beauty about it was that I could work with people all over the world, and there was no need to reveal myself. I could be exactly who I was in this soulful essence of who I am, and do the work that I love to do without anyone getting a priest or without anybody judging me for what kind of shenanigans I was getting up to, because the intention was always pure. But there was always that fear from growing up in Northern Ireland, being raised predominantly Catholic in Catholic schools. Like, there is that kind of reverence where, oh, I've been doing this for a while. This is, kind of how our communities run. And then it's actually quite interesting, because throughout me growing up, I was always spiritual and I was always soulfully connected and quite a psychic child. And even through the religious studies or the religious conditioning that we were just naturally brought up into, I then started to play around with the idea of, maybe I'm not a Catholic, maybe there's something else out there. And then when I was around 14 years of age, I was rebaptized as a born again Christian. And I dabbled in and around that area for a while, and that really liberated my expression of spirituality. But like I say, when I came out of the spiritual closet online, it was purely because I started to feel validated by the kind of work that I was doing, and by the results that my clients or that my students were getting at that time, which was all the more reason just to come out and be like, right, it's time. And don't get me wrong, I've come out of a few closets. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason why I'm not a born again Christian anymore, because they thought that I shouldn't love who I love. So I've done the coming out game quite a bit, but I have to say the coming out of the spiritual closet was one of the most liberating spaces that I've been in.
You mentioned sober a little while ago. So you had, was it drink, drugs, connection, teenage?
All of it. All of it. You name it, I was addicted to it. Drink, drugs, sex, rock and roll, sugar. I've had it all. Anything that was going to make me feel something other than the pain that I was currently going through. And I really had to work hard at being a good person. And this is something that, like, I really live my life by now. I don't go around professing myself to be some kind of pure spiritual guru, because I'm absolutely not. I'm as human as the rest of us. And that's where the dynamic of misfit to mystic came, because that's always been me, always been me.
Brilliant, brilliant. And the same with me. I never fitted in at school. I never fitted in anywhere and everywhere. You know, where I live now in Portugal, it's I fit, and I fit, but not, I fit by not fitting in, if you see what I mean. And that's kind of the lifestyle here, and I just love it, absolutely love it. So you're you mentioned healing and doing readings. Talk us through what you do on those areas.
Yes. So whenever I first started my spiritual journey, spiritual awakening, like I say, I was quite young. I was quite a psychic child. And I think the first interaction that was ever really strong and that stuck with me was a connection with Archangel Michael. And through all of the shenanigans, all of the addictions, all of the trauma, it was always Michael that brought me back from that brink of, you know what, fuck it, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I do not know what I'm doing, and this human crack is hard. So that connection was really a predominant fixture in my life, a real saving grace. And then whenever I found, well, I should say my Reiki master teacher found me, she really helped me to clean up my act and, you know, really dangle the carrot in front of me. Here's the reason how you can get sober and how you can sort your shit out and actually make an impact in other people's lives who's burning in the flames that you are, because they're all around you. And if you allow yourself to come into that space where you actually say, you know what, no, I actually can do good, and I can do it in this way that really aligns with me, then I believe that anybody can get cleaned up. Because if I can, then it is possible for people, really, really possible.
When you were about 14, you said you transitioned from Catholic to Christianity. So 14 is young. Was that something that you were coerced into doing, or was it?
Absolutely not. No, these street pastors picked me off the walls of Derry when I was slobbering drunk at 14 years of age and brought me to a church ceremony. And it was like, whenever I say ceremony now, ceremony means different. It was like a gathering. It was just like, you know, like Sunday you go to mass. It was like that for them. But I'll never forget that night. Like, obviously, me and my friends were all drunk. I don't even know why we said yes. Like, I have no clue in my mind. We were drunk up the walls in Derry, which is infamous for people getting drunk up whenever you are that age in my community. So I don't even know why we said yes, but I can remember going in and the music blaring and people were happy and celebrating, and they were singing about this idea of God that I don't think that I ever found in Catholicism, that I didn't find in a chapel, that a priest could not bestow upon me. And that ability then to be able to be loud and to be bold and to, you know, really connect to something that was not kneel, stand, sit, pray, sing whenever you're being told to do. You were free to express yourself and express that love for God or divinity that in a way that felt right for you. That was encouraged, that was supported. And that did clean me up for a little while. But then when the teaching started about, you know, being really faithful to heterosexuality, and that being the idea and vision of God and following the example of Jesus Christ, that just did not sit well with me or my girlfriend at the time. So yeah, I ended up leaving. Did I leave? Did I get cast out? I felt cast out. I might not have actually been cast out. The pastor didn't say, right, out you go, now you're going to the gates of hell. That was not a conversation that had happened. But I felt like, no, I don't fit in here then, because the God that I know knows that love is love. And that's how I feel, how I identify. And yeah, that ended that pretty quickly. And yeah, again, those drink, drugs, rock and roll and everything else kind of hit hard again, because when you lose the dynamic that this particular church gave you, which was a sense of purpose, a sense of being, like I was able to get up on stage at any point whenever I felt inspired to be able to speak and to be able to share philosophy, and philosophy that didn't necessarily come from the Bible. Like, they let me speak. And again, from being a child that was told that she was too much, too big, too loud and all the rest of it, I thought, right, fuck this, I'm getting up. And I did, and it was amazing. And to have that response that was validating of what I was sharing, what I was saying, and also being young and being listened to, like all of those things just really did it for me. So it absolutely served, and I don't regret a day in my journey because it's brought me to this stage, but it doesn't mean it's been easy.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Nothing is wasted. All these different chapters we go through, all these different experiences, they're all lessons in some way, aren't they? And we choose how to interpret them. Sometimes we might feel a bit sorry for ourselves, but at the end of the day, we ought to have learned something from that experience. But then a lot of people keep repeating and repeating the same mistakes, repeating the same kinds of toxic relationships, for example. And I think you've got something to say about that, haven't you?
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, love a red flag, me. Love a red flag. Yeah, I think in terms of relationships in my life, I think I can pretty honestly say to you that anytime that I have fallen for somebody or created a romantic relationship, it has not come from a space of complimenting. It has been coming from a need to have my needs met, desires met, and wanting to feel loved and valued by someone that would just accept me for who I was. And 9 times out of 10, it gets me into shit. And it's, do you know what I mean? It has been an adventure, to say the very least. And I think now at this stage, because like I say, I've just turned 30, and even though it's not a midlife crisis, I did kind of wake up and think, what in under God am I doing? Like, compliment, not complicate. That's my motto. I can be a hypocrite in my work. You know, I can teach the teach and preach the preach and, you know, help everybody else do the walk. But when you're doing the journey yourself, hence the name Misfit to Mystic, you get lost in it as well. And that is such a big part of the journey. And, you know, for someone like me who very much is an open book, who pretty much lives her life not fully online, but a lot online. Like, I'm not scared to tell people that I make mistakes and that I've been through enough fuck ups, breakups, and mess ups to account for everybody in my awareness, because I have done. Do you know what I mean? And for being the age that I am, which is why always people think that I am older, it's because of all the journeys and the experiences that I've been through. And, you know, it's not to say that I was addicted to pain, but subconsciously, pain was all I knew. So it felt normal. It felt like that was the thing that I needed to seek, that was familiar. And this is not going against any of the good times that I've had or any of the love that I had. Those things are all still very present, like always have been present. But it is me, it is the individual. And being able to present that to someone from the position that I'm sitting in, as someone who goes through it, who walks through it, who has done enough damage and, you know, experienced enough damage to be able to say, well, look, you're not alone in this journey, and I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to do it, but I'm going to hold your hand because that's what I needed growing up. And that's the only reason why I've ever done anything that I've done in my career, in my life, is because I needed that when I was wee. And if I'm not going to stand by that moral compass now and do that for people who are also walking that path like I did, then what's the point? What's the point?
Very, very refreshing hearing you talk like that, Megan, because 30 is still very young by my book. I'm old enough to
Do you know what I mean?
almost old enough to be a great grandmother. But it's amazing. My mum said to me, by the age of 25, she thought I'd lived 3 people's lives by then. And you know, lots of experience that I'd had and I'd continue to have. And my family don't understand me. They're actually not talking to me at the moment, part of my family, because they're apparently I'm so radical because I don't fit. And they because of that, they think I'm radical, but I'm not really. I'm just in a different tribe. So there we are.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned mentoring as well. I think that's a really important differentiator between people who coach and people who mentor. Mentors have walked the talk and they continue to walk the talk, which is what I do. But coaching, anybody can pretty much go on a coaching course and then take you through a process. But with what you do, it's very experiential, isn't it? Story sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the services that I offer, actually. One of the services is called Own Your Story. So it's either Own Your Story ceremonies. It used to be called Own Your Story coaching. But then as I was going through that journey, I realized that even though I am a qualified coach, it's not my style. I prefer to mentor and to be able to you know, really encapsulate people within the storylines that they are telling. I'm really big on writing. I'm really big on detail. Blow everything up, make it colorful, because that's what my life has been like. It's been a blow up. It's been absolutely colorful. So whenever you're able to bring people into that perspective where you can absolutely own your story, but you can rewrite the thing as well. Like, you do not need to consistently get wrapped around in the spiral of whatever perspective or view or lens that you are perceiving your life in. And whenever I am in the space of mentoring, and even when I'm in the space of teaching, when I'm doing development, psychic development, spiritual development, personal development, it is always from that space of mentoring, because I cannot speak to something that has not intrinsically been experienced inside. I can empathize with pain and I can compassionately speak to pain, but unless that I have either experienced at some level, or I have consciously worked with other people in a safe, secure, stable place and guided them through that, I won't touch it. Like, I would not recommend anything that has not made a personal difference in my life, which is the only reason why I've studied as profusely as what I have, is because all the trials and experiments that I've gone through with all methods of healing, I will only ever recommend the ones that I've personally tried myself, and I will not open my mouth until I know what that is capable of doing for a person, because if it can do it for me, then I know that I can speak to that for other people as well. So it's really a safeguarding measure doing that, isn't it? It's really about having a duty of care for people and ensuring that you're not walking them into being re-traumatized or re-triggering them in some way. It is purely a sense of duty of care.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And walking your talk and being in alignment with who you are, to the point where what you see is what you get, rather than so many people tend to put a false front on, and they're not in alignment with who they are, and then they wonder why their life's all screwed up, because they're trying to be something that they're not. And that's the work that I do with behavioral profiling. So I can tell by looking at somebody's behavior pattern with the reports that come off of my system, whether somebody is ill, what they're likely to be ill with, whether they are at burnout, they've already reached burnout, or they're approaching it, whatever. And it's fascinating. So we've all got different ways of coming to the same thing, but it's all about alignment and joy and happiness, love, all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. That sounds so interesting what you do. We must talk about this off camera. You've sparked my attention now. There's going to be something else to learn about.
Yeah, I've decided that I need to train people, because I've been working for 25 years plus with the DISC model of behavioral profiling, and I've created a method where I can tell the health aspects. So I've created a model that's on the back end of my website, where people just do their report and then they have a consultation on Zoom with me. So like you, I can meet with people anywhere in the world. But the reason I was in London recently was I was invited by a firm of accountants to help them to assess 4 senior people to a different role, and are they behaviorally suited? So I said yes, and then I also gave them a guidance on their health and well-being. So 2 of them, yes, no hesitation whatsoever. The other 2, I said yes, are still okay. However, they need to be supported in this way or that way, because of things I was seeing in their behavior pattern, indicating they're not in alignment with their true selves. So that is just amazing. And that was the first that I've done lots of things like that in the past, but it's the first physical one I've actually traveled to do, because as I say, I can do it online. But when you see people in person, the energy, the energy exchange and the conversations are so much nicer. So I'm now at the point of thinking, well, how do I take this forward? And as I say, I've been doing it 25 years, but with health things that have happened to me and life adventures, shall we say, I think, right, okay, now is the time to see what I can do and train other people. You mentioned
Incredible.
You mentioned Archangel Michael. I talk to him every day, and I've been told that there are several Archangel Michaels and they're not all good. What would you say to that?
I would say that there's light and heavy everywhere that you go, and the clearer your intention is whenever you are doing any type of connection to spirit, the more grounded you'll be in your body, so that you do not end up going off into space and losing your marbles, because that is all very well and good, and also not being a magnet for crap.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that You know, whenever we say that there's lots of different Archangel Michaels, there's probably lots of energies out there that say they're one thing but do another. You see it in the human experience, and you'll see it in the spirit experience. And whenever it comes to the connection that I have with Archangel Michael, you know, he's the bestest friend that I've ever had, but he's also the biggest pain in my arse. Like, you know what I mean? And that's just what my team are. That's what my guides are. I talk to them like I'll talk to you or anybody else. I'll be effing and jeffing and swearing and all the rest of it, because for me, that is an authentic relationship. And if you do not create space for those rational, normal, human emotions to come up whenever spirit's doing your tits in, well, then is it really authentic? So I would really, when it comes to speaking to lots of different entities, or there might be lots of good and lots of bad, my rules are pure intention, first of all, know who it is that you're looking to speak to make sure that you're practicing energy protection anyway, never mind talking with spirit. I'm on about Tom, Dick and Harry in the street that can leech energy off you, or you can leak it to them. And then the third one, do not give spirit permission to move shit in your house. There's spirit for a reason. Like, do you know what I mean? Duty of care, safety first, safeguarding, call it whatever you want, but there's a reason why there's spirit. Do you know what I mean? Don't dick about with that stuff, because once you give the power away and you don't know how to give it back, then what?
How do we practice? How do people, thinking for the benefit of the listeners, how do people protect themselves? How do Tom, Dick and Harry protect themselves from evil spirits?
So personally, because I've never even entertained the thought of it, fear is a very real thing that will give permission to anything to attach to you. And whenever we are scared, we are much more easily manipulated, coerced, and controlled. And whenever you are in that fear-based state, it does magnetize the wrong type of energy. It's like people, when they're going through these patterns and repeat cycles, they're not able to move out of that space. But when it comes to a spirit perspective, if your intention is to connect to the purest light that is conscious, that is love, that is the thing that created you, and you believe in it, then that, hands down, more than any crystals, any crucifixes, any exorcisms, will stand really, really strong in your energy. And what I will say is, if you are faking it until you make it, it still can serve a purpose, because you have to start somewhere. Because the biggest problem is when people are trying to really, you know, the biggest buzzwords at the minute are manifestation and, you know, raise your vibration and good vibes only. And as much as they can serve a purpose, in very many states, they're not realistic, because false positivity is toxic positivity that can be even more detrimental. And whenever you are practicing with protection, it's about exercising those faith muscles. It's about consciously saying yes to the light, yes to the love, allowing that to move through you, and giving yourself the space and time every day to do so. And I don't mean just getting up blasé saying, right, Archangel Michael, mum, wrap back, look around, mate, we're going out for a dander now. It's about actually getting into the space. And we don't create a lot of that space because of the society that we live in. We're overworked, underpaid, and undervalued, and we're all ill. So in that predicament, the only way to really practice strong anything, strengthen any kind of resilience, is making that space and that time for yourself to really connect to that essence or that higher power that you believe in. And that will protect you from the nasties. But it doesn't mean that your soul's not going to want to dance with the devil a couple of more times for growth. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. And you mentioned about people kind of just drawing out and sucking out your energy. And you know, when you go into a room or you stand next to somebody at the bus stop or whatever, you can feel the energy, can't you? And it's amazing. You can even just by looking at somebody's face, quite often you know if they're kind, thoughtful, caring, whatever it is. But sometimes we do make mistakes, and that's why we end up going into the relationships that don't serve us. And again, it's playing to the fear, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we also need to, you know, make this very clear for anybody who's listening. Anybody can be susceptible to it. If there is a vulnerability, if there has not been a strong foundation of clear boundaries put in place of what's safe and unsafe, what is moral, what is immoral, then people are already starting at a disadvantage. And there is no shame or judgment in that at any stage. Yes, we always talk about accountability and people taking responsibility for the part that they played in that role. But generally, people are doing what they know. And not everyone has been given the knowledge that they need to be able to protect themselves, or even to recognize an energy vampire or an unhealthy or toxic trauma bond, or any of these things that now everyone seems to be a fucking expert on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at the minute, everyone's a narcissist and everyone. So all of those things are really big now because those foundations were not in place. Do you know what I mean? And they weren't given in the first place to whoever taught you that trait. It wasn't given to them, or else they just would have passed it down, because it's patterns.
Yeah, patterns are incredibly powerful, and we don't always see the patterns. I'm just currently doing a series of 10 free masterclasses, and I've decided I'm going to just keep rolling them on. So I'll do the 10, then I'll just start again, do the 10, just keep doing it, because I'm finding the people that are listening are so inspired by their everyday conversations, but they're things that affect our life day to day. So when I used to be a mentor for people just newly diagnosed with cancer, and I still do a lot of that, but not quite so prominent. I used to give talks and all kinds, which I don't do these days. But I found that there was a pattern. And if our life is in balance with all these areas, so it's work, home, mind, body, beliefs, attitudes, values, behavior, friends, and family. So those 10 areas, if we're in balance in all of those areas, then our life just flows, absolutely flows. We don't need to do anything, just enjoy the love, the joy, the happiness, and all the rest of it. But if there's any one of those areas out of kilter, then that's when you start getting everything else. It's like a boat that's tipping up at sea, you know, getting all wobbly. So none of this is difficult, is it? But we're not taught it.
Not taught it, and that's the biggest disadvantage, because it's not in the core foundation of education anywhere. Like, anywhere. And, you know, I wasn't like, I know that you said earlier on that you weren't really, you know, interested in school. There was parts of school that I really, really loved. Like, I did great in my GCSEs. Like, it wasn't like superstar academia. And then whenever I went to do my A levels in iMedia, I did even better, because it was a topic that really inspired me. But I grew up to be a psychic come off it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, grateful for school and all the rest of the stuff that's going on. But I grew up to start a soulful business where I would be teaching and talking to people consistently about accountability, responsibility, and a connection to a source that has really been indoctrinated from a religious perspective growing up. And, you know, school didn't teach me any of that. That wasn't a topic.
You use the word source. I'm using that word more often these days, and no matter whether people say it's God or Allah or you know, whatever, it's all the same. It's energy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, in one of the practices that I do for my soulful practice every day, that is just for me, whenever I am in conversation with source, when I am conversing, when I'm communicating, sometimes the name will change. And, you know, source really, it does what it says in the tin. It's the source of everything. But sometimes I would name it spirit, or I would name it love or divinity, or, you know, some other name. And it all depends in the energy that I'm working with. And whenever I teach whenever I teach people about the concept of source, of universe, of spirit, I always reflect back to the Trinity and it being a three-part system. And I always say it starts with you, spirit, and the universe, which is the source of everything. So there's always a three connection in that whenever I'm teaching it, because, you know, the universe is what we are living in. It is the thing that is creating itself, that it's expanding all the time. Spirit is the invisible connection that is collaborating with spirit, with energies, with entities, that is collaboratively making this universe grow. It's adding to that energy, it's creating the frequency. And then you are an expression of those things. Just, you are an expression of it in a skin suit, doing the best you can with what you've got.
Absolutely fascinating. So how do people get hold of you, Megan?
So at the minute, you can find me on Facebook. You can join my group, the Misfit to Mystic Academy, which is no problem. You'll be able to find me there. My actual profile on Facebook is blowing up right now. So friend requests are probably going to become few and far between. But if you just search me on social media, Misfit to Mystic or Misfit to Mystic Academy, you'll be able to find me.
Brilliant, thank you. And do you have a website?
I don't have a website at the minute. It is currently getting done up at the minute because I have just started a new membership that encompasses all of my teachings and all of my mad swearing shenanigans when it comes to spirit in one place. So in that space, I offer all of my favorite teachings, where it's spiritual development, personal development, and it's a soul tribe family of misfits and mystics who have felt alone and isolated, but want to live a soulful life so that they can create it on their terms and live a life that they actually want to live.
Brilliant. And that so fits in with my Friday Health Club. I'd love to have you come speak to our members.
Friday I would love to.
Every week. We're booked up till the end of June, as far as I know. We've been booked up for several months to the end of June. I need to start getting more coming in, so I'll send you the link. So the Friday Health Club goes from 11 to 12:30, and we're all misfits, but we've found our tribe, so we're all done together.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Marvelous. Okay, lovely to speak with you. Megan Robinson from Misfit to Mystic. Thank you.